Hello everybody and welcome back to another new vlog. Thank you for joining me once again. Quick question for you. Has Canon killed off one of its very popular series of cameras just by bringing out one new camera? I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second, but in the meantime I've stopped here and set up a shot of these two trees behind me. Now, I've photographed them before on separate occasions when the conditions were very different, very wet and murky, and the trees themselves look very different. And now with very dry conditions, the trees with the green mossy coloured bark on them really stand out a lot better in these much drier conditions at the beginning of February. So I've captured them both together this time, landscape orientation, because that works quite well with these two trees, and hope you like that image. I'm going to explain to you why I believe Canon may have killed one of its very popular range of cameras in just a moment. But before I do, why don't you make sure you subscribe to my channel and give the video a thumbs up, because that would be really helpful to me. And also, if you wanted to, you could always share this video amongst your friends and on your social media platforms. And if you wanted to make a comment, I'll always try and answer any comments you leave me in the comments box below. Anyway, a quick brief history. Canon's digital SLR camera range for many years has consisted of a range of cameras which have the EF and or the EFS mount lens, and the idea of that meant that they could produce lenses for all of their cameras that could fit from one camera to another quite easily without having to make any changes at all. And it meant that every time they brought out a new camera body, the existing lenses would still work perfectly with the new camera body. Well, about 12 years ago, Canon decided to step into the mirrorless range of cameras, and they brought out the M series of cameras, and I'll tell you a little bit more about those in just a moment. Canon's M series of mirrorless cameras was a very interesting one because they have all been APS-C or cropped sensor cameras, and the best way I can explain that to you is if we go back to the old 35mm format of analog film cameras. That 35mm film negative that you get when you take the photo is roughly the same size as what we now call full frame on a digital camera. APS-C or crop sensor cameras, such as the M series of cameras, have a slightly smaller sensor than the full frame camera that we've got now. And the reason that's important is because, as I say, all of the M series of cameras have all been this crop sensor APS-C format, so a smaller sensor size. It's allowed for smaller camera bodies with slightly smaller lenses, so it makes it easier to carry those cameras around. About 5 years ago, Canon decided they were going to start producing full frame mirrorless cameras. That's mirrorless cameras with sensor size very similar, in fact probably exactly the same size as the old 35mm film negatives that we used to get. It meant obviously slightly bigger cameras, slightly bigger lenses, but it also meant another slightly different lens mount, the RF lens mount. Well, that was great because all of the RF mount cameras up until very recently have been full frame, so they haven't done anything at all to diminished the market for the M series of cameras, which were all crop sensors. Towards the end of 2022, second half of 2022 onwards, Canon made the decision to introduce some APS-C crop sensor cameras for the RF mount, which meant that now we had an RF mount system with full frame and crop sensor cameras. The first two of the crop sensor cameras that Canon brought out for the RF system were the R7 and the R10. And the R10 is an entry-level camera, mirrorless camera, but it's also APS-C or crop sensor, and it directly affects the M series of cameras. It became quite popular amongst videographers and content creators who wanted the flexibility to be able to make video and stills footage using the same camera. The R7, on the other hand, was a high-end version of the R10, and it was very popular because it was quite similar to the old Canon EOS 7D and the 7D Mark II in the SLR range that became very popular amongst SLR users, Canon SLR users. In recent days, however, Canon have decided to release two more new RF mount cameras. One of them the R8, which is a full frame mirrorless camera, and supposedly the predecessor to the very popular R6 that came out a while ago, and the more recent R6 Mark II. But they've also released the R50, which is the one that's kind of probably going to kill off the M series of cameras. You see, the R50 is what we call an entry-level mirrorless camera, and it's APS-C or crop sensor, and similar to the R7 and the R10, it's obviously aimed at content creators, but it's also, because it's a budget friendly RF mount camera, it means that anybody who wants to get into the mirrorless system using Canon cameras can do so very easily at a very low budget, because there's now two options: the R10 I mentioned earlier and the R50, that are at that budget level for people just starting out photography, content creators who want a cheap camera, and so on. Maybe that provides an opportunity for some people though, because as a lot of people start moving over from the M series of cameras to the RF mount instead, because they can get the same camera now, the RF mount camera, for a very, very low price, the same budget as the original M series of cameras. That means that the M series of cameras will start hitting the used market very soon, and obviously the prices will come down quite a lot. So if you are looking for an M series Canon digital camera in the near future, keep your eyes on the used market, because you may well be able to get yourself a real bargain. And the cameras won't just stop working just because there's a new system around. They'll continue to work for as long as they have got life left in them. So as long as the camera's not falling apart and the shutter button still works, you might still be able to get a really, really decent camera very, very cheaply. Just walking past this little scene here, my eye was immediately drawn to this little cluster of trees here, and the obvious reason is that one tree in the cluster with golden bark all up the side of it, and the rest are all just the standard greeny brown colour that you would expect to see on the trees. That one really stands out just on its own, but it draws the eye into that cluster, and they create kind of a perfect composition there. I think there's 5 of them. There may be one extra little very skinny tree standing in front of one of them that makes it 6, but I think the 5 or 6 create a nice composition between them. It kind of feels quite right just as you take the image. Obviously it's a landscape orientation. All of those trees fit perfectly in the scene, and I quite like it, so I hope you like it as well. I mentioned the M series of camera has been killed off, of course, because at this current moment in time I am in the market for buying myself a new vlogging camera, purely for vlogging and nothing else. A camera that can be used just for recording my video footage while I'm on my vlogs. It would make sense to be able to do that, and the M system of cameras are in quite a lot of cases very good vlogging cameras anyway. So I'm wondering if I can save a few quid and get myself a very decent M50 or M50 Mark II, or even possibly an M100 or M200 very cheaply, and continue using that purely as a vlogging camera for a while. So that's quite an interesting scenario, and it's something I'm seriously thinking about. In the meantime, however, I am currently using the RP as a stills and vlogging camera. It works great for content creators to be able to use that as a hybrid system, and I knew when I bought it over 18 months ago now that I was going to be able to use it in that way. I even made a vlog myself about using it as a hybrid camera, but I'm wondering now whether I just want to use it solely as a stills camera and have a completely separate vlogging system, which is easier to carry around and easier to hold at arm's length whilst I'm vlogging like this. I've photographed this tree behind me a couple of times before, but in very different conditions in the summer, with the sunlight shining through and illuminating the ground beneath and around the tree. But this time I wanted a slightly different angle, so I've got down slightly lower, well, much lower in fact, and kind of looked up towards the tree with a wide angle lens, open as wide as it will go at 17mm, almost silhouetting the tree against that light from the sky. But also I've shot it using 3 separate exposures, so that I can bracket those exposures afterwards and try and bring back some of the detail here in the darker areas on the tree, whilst also maintaining the highlights as they are. So that's quite an interesting one. Hope you like that image. I think I'm going to call that a day for today on this vlog. I hope you've enjoyed the vlog. If you have, please remember to give it a thumbs up, and also please remember to subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you again on another vlog very soon. Bye for now.